You know what's wild? We've been watching Star Trek for decades, seeing the Enterprise zip around the galaxy like it's no big deal. Warp speed, transporters, artificial gravity, it all looks so smooth, so achievable. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. Real space travel isn't even playing the same game. We're not just behind Star Trek technology. We're so far behind that comparing them is like comparing a paper airplane to an F-22 Raptor. And honestly, the real reasons why are way more interesting than you'd think. Let me paint you a picture of what I mean.
There's something inside that scar, and it's moving like it's aware of us.
Let's start with the most obvious one, speed. In Star Trek, they've got warp drive. The Enterprise can hit warp 9, which in the show's physics means they're going about 1,500 times the speed of light. That means they can cross the entire galaxy in a matter of weeks or months. Sounds awesome, right? Here's reality. Our fastest spacecraft ever, the Parker Solar Probe, tops out at about 430,000 miles per hour. That sounds insane until you realize that's only 0.064% the speed of light. Not 64%, not even 6%, 0.064%. Want to know how long it would take that probe to reach our nearest star system, Alpha Centauri? About 6,700 years, and that's our neighbor. The Milky Way galaxy is about 100,000 light years across. Do the math on that and you're looking at timescales that make human civilization look like a blink. But speed isn't even the real problem. The real problem is energy. To accelerate anything to even a fraction of light speed requires absolutely bonkers amounts of energy. We're talking about energy levels that dwarf anything humanity has ever produced. The entire electrical output of the United States for a year wouldn't be enough to accelerate a single spacecraft to 10% light speed. And here's where it gets worse. In space, you can't just accelerate. You also have to decelerate when you get there. That means you need double the energy. Plus, you need to carry all that fuel with you, which makes your ship heavier, which means you need even more fuel. It's called the tyranny of the rocket equation, and it's basically physics giving us the middle finger. Star Trek solved this with antimatter. In the show, they mix matter and antimatter in their warp core, which produces massive amounts of energy. Cool solution, except we can barely produce antimatter at all. CERN, the world's most advanced particle physics lab, produces about 10 nanograms of antimatter per year. To power a Star Trek-style ship for a single day, you'd need tons of the stuff. Oh, and storing antimatter? If it touches regular matter, which is literally everything, it explodes. So there's that. Even if we somehow solved the speed and energy problems, we'd still have to deal with the fact that the human body is basically a delicate meat sack that evolved for Earth gravity and Earth conditions. In Star Trek, they've got artificial gravity. Every ship, every station, everyone walks around like they're on Earth. In reality, we have no idea how to create artificial gravity. Zero. The only way we know to simulate it is by spinning a spacecraft, which creates centrifugal force. But that comes with its own problems. Motion sickness, structural stress, and the fact that you'd need a massive ship to make it work without making everyone dizzy. Without artificial gravity, astronauts lose bone density at about 1 to 2% per month. Their muscles atrophy, their cardiovascular systems weaken, fluids shift toward their heads, causing vision problems. On the International Space Station, astronauts exercise 2 hours a day just to minimize these effects, and they still come back weaker. A trip to Mars takes about 7 months one way. A trip to another star system? We're talking decades or centuries. The human body simply wasn't designed for that. Here's something Star Trek barely mentions. Space is absolutely flooded with radiation. Cosmic rays, solar radiation, radiation from distant supernovas. It's everywhere, and it's deadly. On Earth, we're protected by our atmosphere and magnetic field. In space, you're exposed. The Apollo astronauts reported seeing flashes of light even with their eyes closed. That was cosmic rays passing through their eyeballs. On longer missions, this radiation increases cancer risk, damages the nervous system, and can cause cognitive problems. Star Trek ships have deflector shields that protect against radiation. We don't have those. The best we can do is add shielding to spacecraft, but that adds weight, which brings us back to the fuel problem. It's all connected and it all sucks. Let's talk about just how stupidly big space is. Douglas Adams said it best. Space is big, really big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is. The moon is about 240,000 miles away. We've been there. Mars, at its closest, is about 34 million miles away. We've sent robots there. But the nearest star? That's 25 trillion miles. The numbers stop making sense to human brains at that scale. In Star Trek, they're constantly running into other civilizations, other ships, other planets with life. The galaxy feels crowded. In reality, even if there are millions of civilizations out there, the distances are so vast that we might never encounter them. Space isn't just big. It's so big that it makes everything else irrelevant. In Star Trek, they talk to Starfleet Command in real time. Even when they're on the other side of the galaxy, they have subspace communication that somehow bypasses the speed of light. In reality, nothing travels faster than light. Nothing. That includes information. When we send commands to the Mars rovers, there's a delay of anywhere from 4 to 24 minutes, depending on where Mars is in its orbit. A conversation with someone on Mars would be like the world's worst text message exchange, with 8 to 48 minutes between each reply. Now imagine trying to coordinate a mission to another star system. A message would take over 4 years to reach Alpha Centauri, and another 4 years to get a response back. You can't exactly call home for help if something goes wrong. On Star Trek ships, life support just works. They've got replicators that can make food out of energy. They recycle everything perfectly. The air is always fresh. The water is always clean. On the ISS, which is only 250 miles above Earth, life support is a constant challenge. They recycle urine into drinking water. Yes, really. They scrub CO2 from the air using complex chemical systems. They rely on regular resupply missions from Earth to bring fresh food, water, and oxygen. For a multi-year journey to another star system, you'd need a completely closed-loop life support system that never fails, ever, because there's no resupply mission coming. One major malfunction, and everyone dies. The engineering required to make that reliable for decades or centuries is something we're nowhere close to achieving. Here's one that doesn't get talked about enough: the psychological toll of long-duration space travel. In Star Trek, crews go on 5-year missions and everyone seems fine. They've got holodecks for entertainment, shore leave on interesting planets, and the ability to communicate with home. In reality, we've studied what happens to people in isolated, confined environments. Antarctic research stations, submarines, long-duration space missions, they all show the same patterns. People get irritable, depressed, anxious. Conflicts arise, performance degrades, and that's with the knowledge that they can go home relatively soon. Now imagine being on a spacecraft for decades, knowing you'll never see Earth again, never breathe fresh air, never feel rain on your face. Some proposed missions to other star systems are generation ships, spacecraft where the people who start the journey will die long before arrival, and their great-great-grandchildren will be the ones to reach the destination. The psychological implications of that are staggering. So where does all this leave us? Star Trek is set in the 23rd and 24th centuries, roughly 200 to 300 years from now. The show assumes we'll have figured out faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, energy shields, transporters, replicators, and a dozen other technologies that currently seem impossible. But here's the thing: some of these technologies don't just seem hard, they seem to violate the fundamental laws of physics as we understand them. Faster-than-light travel, for instance, isn't just an engineering challenge. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, it's impossible. Not really hard, impossible. Actually impossible. Could we be wrong about that? Sure. Physics has been revolutionized before, but betting on a complete overthrow of our understanding of space-time is a pretty big gamble. Don't get me wrong, we're not sitting still. NASA and private companies like SpaceX are working on better propulsion systems, ion drives, nuclear thermal rockets, even theoretical concepts like solar sails and fusion drives. These could cut travel times within our solar system dramatically. We're also working on better life support systems, better radiation shielding, and better ways to keep astronauts healthy in space. The Artemis program aims to establish a permanent presence on the moon, which would be a huge step forward. But even with all these advances, we're still talking about exploring our solar system, not the galaxy. Mars is achievable, maybe some of Jupiter's or Saturn's moons. But other star systems, that's still science fiction. Here's what it comes down to. Star Trek isn't a prediction of the future. It's a fantasy. A beautiful, inspiring fantasy that's motivated generations of scientists and engineers, but a fantasy nonetheless. The laws of physics are harsh. Space is too big, too empty, too hostile. The energy requirements are too high, the distance is too vast, the challenge is too fundamental. We're not just a few technological breakthroughs away from Star Trek, we're potentially impossible breakthroughs away. Does that mean we should give up on space exploration? Hell no. We should absolutely continue pushing the boundaries, exploring our solar system, learning everything we can. But we need to be realistic about what's actually possible versus what makes for good television. The real space age won't look like Star Trek. It'll be slower, harder, more dangerous, and more expensive. But it'll also be real. And in some ways, that makes it even more impressive. Because we're doing it anyway despite all these impossible odds, with the primitive technology we have available. That's the human spirit right there. We look at the impossible and say, yeah, but let's try anyway. Even if we never get warp drive, even if we never explore the galaxy, the fact that we're trying to push beyond our tiny blue marble is pretty damn remarkable. So no, real space travel isn't even close to Star Trek. It's not in the same universe. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the journey we're actually on is interesting enough on its own.